Hello, my name is Kelsey Williams, and I would like to welcome you to my presentation on the existence of racism and dysconscious racism in the deaf community. To get started, we'll talk about the framing questions. The framing questions are: why do Black deaf people choose to identify outside of the deaf community? What is the history, and what are their experiences and their stories? To start talking about any of this, we must talk about intersectionality and what it means to identify as a Black deaf individual. So, intersectionality can be described as the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and independent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. In this case, for this project, this will be about being Black and deaf. So, since we'll be going over racism and dysconscious racism, we must give those definitions. Racism can be defined as prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. Dysconsciousness is an uncritical habit of mind, including perceptions, attitudes, assumptions, and beliefs that justifies inequality and exploitation by accepting the existing order of things as given. So, dysconsciousness in terms of racism means the uncritical habit of mind that justifies racism in our country. So, to start talking about racism, we want to know what the history of American racism is all about. The transatlantic slave trade forcefully brought Africans from their homelands to what we now know as America. Once they arrived to an unknown land, they were then enslaved to be servants to rich white landowners. They were not allowed to be educated and were often beaten and not treated as humans. Until slavery became illegal, many were able to find ways to escape or buy their freedom. Even after spending years in this country and becoming free people, Black people were still forced to be treated as completely separate and as lesser individuals. The Jim Crow laws were put into place to enforce a false sense of separate but equal amongst the community so that they had their own facilities and schools, but were still not intermingled with white people. As time has gone on and the Jim Crow laws have been since dismantled, Black people still deal with blatant racism, microaggressions from white people today. Things from our hairstyles, language, and sense of humor are constantly under scrutiny and judgment. Next, we will start talking about dysconscious racism, specifically about dysconscious racism and how it is impacting Black people themselves. So, the history and impact. We've already gone over what racism is in this country and how it got its start. It has become something that is embedded in this country's history. The disconsciousness of it amongst Black people themselves has become even more popular, meaning that accepting these microaggressions, accepting the racism that we see on an everyday basis, has become extremely normalized and seen as a regular social norm. The fixed and universal beliefs set in place by Europeans became even accepted by Black people. There are category one and category two explanations of the cultural characteristics of Black people today as an effect of slavery and racism that most effectively represent dysconscious racism. Now, there are category three explanations, but category one and two mainly excuse or defend white people and their privileges and their actions and make it a social norm that everyone can either understand or relate to. Next, we'll be discussing how this history of racism and dysconscious racism, how it starts to relate to the deaf community and where we get into the intersectionality of it all. So, just like in the hearing community, there is African American vernacular English, which can be simply put as different slang or a type of speaking that is commonly known among African Americans and that is used culturally with other people that look just like us. Now, in sign language, there is American Sign Language and Black American Sign Language. Black American Sign Language, which is also called BASL, is a distinct dialect and a variety of American Sign Language that is used by many Black deaf communities across the United States. It is another way of Black people finding a way to enhance their shared cultures and beliefs and experiences with other people that look just like them and finding their own identity outside of just being in the deaf community. As being in the deaf community is usually remarked as a white experience and is not often given from a Black experience. American Sign Language and Black American Sign Language are just one of the ways that the community is seen as separated. Here is a video from Jeremy Lee Stone that discusses, can American Sign Language be involved in racism? So, as seen from Jeremy Lee Stone and his guest speaker, Monroe, it is shown that there is a complete difference in how Black people are spoken about or treated in American Sign Language than white people are. So that is a part of their experiences and their stories, and a part of why Black American Sign Language is something that is absolutely necessary. And it is a huge part of why Black people will separate themselves from being a part of just the deaf community, and while they will always choose to identify as being Black first and foremost. This the example of the signs for white and beautiful being the same and Black and ugly being the same are just blatant racism and showing that even in American Sign Language, that it is possible to show that there is a preference in race. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation today, and I hope you were able to walk away with understanding why Black people feel like they have to distance themselves from the deaf community in some type of way and form their own identities as Black deaf individuals, and what that intersectionality means to them, where this history started from, and what the experiences and the stories are of the people that identify as Black and deaf. Thank you.